You know, like in the movies where the black character's just there to help the white guy on his journey.
The magical minority trope has been widely condemned for its racist undertones and problematic takeaways. Yet to this day, it's strangely difficult to get rid of.
You have no idea how long I've been trying to get in there.
It involves a person of color, usually a man, existing in a film or TV show for more or less the sole purpose of serving the heroic or redemptive endeavors of the white protagonist.
I can't do this.
Just loose your grip up a smidge.
It originated as, and still most often takes the form of, the Magical Negro, but members of other minority groups have received the magical minority treatment as well. The magical minority uses a special gift they possess to help the white protagonist, whether that gift is a mystical connection to the supernatural,
Molly, you in danger, girl.
hyper-intelligence in a specific area,
Molecules realign, becomes rigid.
or an exceptional talent.
My grandmother and I could hold conversations entirely without ever opening our mouths. She called it shining.
And they apparently expect little to nothing in return besides the satisfaction of helping the white person find themselves. Their backstory usually remains vague or unknown and unimportant to the plot, and once they've served their narrative purpose, they're probably discarded from the story.
My ID. Get you where you need to go.
The magical minority actually stems from fake progressivism and a surface attempt to create positive media representation of people of color. But given the realities of race in America, this trope is a white writer's fantasy. It soothes white guilt by providing white audiences with sympathetic white protagonists to see themselves in.
Listen, assholes, do yourselves a favor and let them go. Now!
Without having to shift focus away from the white character's experience. And it depicts people of color as teachers, assistants, or spiritual guides, essentially helpers or servers, instead of as whole, autonomous people with their own dreams and goals. Here's our take on why the pernicious magical minority trope still hangs on, and its real-life consequences for how our culture treats people of color.
Sometimes things have to come apart before we can put them back together again.
Oh, you're a magical Negro too.
Who you call a Negro, bitch?
If you're new here, be sure to subscribe and click the bell to be notified about all of our new videos. I want to thank NordVPN for sponsoring today's video. The amount of time we spend online has increased in the last year, and that makes keeping our internet use private more important than ever before. NordVPN keeps my data safe on the world's fastest and most secure virtual private network. Click the link in the description below, nordvpn.com/thetake, to get a huge discount on a 2-year plan and 4 extra months of NordVPN for free. Director Spike Lee brought the term magical Negro into the popular lexicon in 2001 when discussing films such as The Green Mile and The Legend of Bagger Vance. Lee described black characters like the ones played by Michael Clark Duncan and Will Smith in these films as magical, mystical Negroes.
The trick is to find your swing.
He questioned the writing of these roles, asking, how is it that black people have these powers but they use them for the benefit of white people?
Seek it with your hands. Don't think about it. Feel it. Your hands is wiser than your head ever gonna be.
The character type actually existed long before it had this name. One of the earliest prominent examples of the magical Negro was Jim, a runaway slave who served as companion to Huck in Mark Twain's 1884 novel, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn.
I didn't tell him nothing, Huck. I didn't want to get you in any trouble.
In the book and its adaptations, Jim is characterized as wise, self-sacrificing, spiritual, and nurturing, patiently helping these white boys learn life lessons even when they aren't always kind in return.
Huck Finn, man is worth. I'm mighty proud to know him.
Shut up, Jim.
Despite the oppression of being a slave who's separated from his family and a plot that involves Tom Sawyer keeping him enslaved for longer than necessary to play tricks by not revealing that he's been freed just for fun, Jim is superhumanly gracious and positive, in line with the happy slave caricature. We can see this inexplicable happiness in one of film's earliest examples of the magical Negro trope, Uncle Remus in Song of the South.
Everything is satisfactual, zippity-doo-dah.
Uncle Remus's magic is his ability to talk to the birds and other animals in his songs and stories, as well as his delight and ease with white children. The legacy of the magical Negro is that of a caretaker and thus has overlap with the older Mammy and Uncle Tom caricatures, both of which present black characters as nurturing servants who are happy
happy to cater to white families.
You can take that all back to the kitchen. I won't need to buy it.
Oh, yes, you is. You's going to eat every mouthful of this.
Throughout the 80s and 90s, decades that saw escalating racial tensions, more Black actors landed starring roles in media. White-led, feel-good films of the era often gave their characters the Magical Negro treatment in a superficial nod toward positive representation that didn't really challenge the white-centric status quo.
What do you want, John Coffey? Just to help.
Meanwhile, other actors of color were cast in similar roles that utilized magic specific to their racial group. The magical Asian trope emerged as an exotified spiritual teacher to white protagonists, most often appearing to mentor them in the arts of hand-to-hand combat.
Try punch. Yeah. And some more.
The magical Native American trope depicted indigenous peoples as simultaneously wise and savage-like, providing wisdom to white people through exotified ancient practices.
Drink this liquid.
More, please.
These minority characters continue to be isolated from their communities with non-existent backstories, offering their total loyalty to the white protagonist and their values. In the most extreme scenarios, this could even make them traitors to their own people. Take Disney's version of Pocahontas. Although she initially finds John Smith condescending and dangerous in his colonial mindset,
there's so much we can teach you. We've improved the lives of savages all over the world.
Savages?
She ultimately sides with him, defending him from her father.
Oh! If you kill him, you'll have to kill me too.
In all these historical examples, magical minorities enter the story to teach white leads valuable life lessons and shape them into the best versions of themselves, even if this puts the magical minority character in great peril or personal risk.
Slavery ain't right. All men should be free.
Never heard such talk in my life.
Thus, this kind of story implicitly encourages white people to see people of color as only existing to labor for their personal growth. Magical minorities are introduced into a plot as hyper-intelligent,
he knows more than you can imagine,
omnipotent, and/or spiritually gifted mentors to unskilled, insolent, or innocent white leads. Examples like Oda Mae in Ghost freely offer advice, healing, or mentorship to white people, without the plot making clear what exactly the minority has to gain from doing so.
I need you to tell Molly what I'm saying, but you have to tell her word for word, all right? Word for word.
Yes. He wants me to tell you what he's saying word for word.
In Holes, Sam happily shares his holistic knowledge of onions to scores of white people who are in awe of his unconventional healing methods.
Nature's magic vegetable, Miss Catherine.
Sam's business highlights the way that capitalism often plays into the dynamics between a magical minority and white protagonist.
Miss Daisy, you needs a chauffeur. Lord knows I needs a job, so why don't we just leave it like that?
As white characters are often most comfortable interacting with people of color who are in a service position.
Well, Miss Catherine, I guarantee that roof for 5 years.
They will often pay a POC character for a service and therefore establish a clear power dynamic rooted in class, while implicitly feeling owed some sort of enrichment or growth. Sam eventually becomes Kate's full-blown handyman, offering her help compulsively.
You know, that door doesn't hang straight.
I can fix that.
And this ultimately costs him his life. Thus, Kate's character transformation turns Sam into a discarded plot device. With another version of the magical minority, Madame Zeroni, the film makes the literal magic of this character both the obstacle and the solution to the film, suggesting that people of color are essentially stepping stones to success in white people's lives. Madame Zeroni curses Elia Yelnats because he forgot to carry her up God's thumb.
You and your family will be cursed for always and eternity.
But Stanley unintentionally breaks it by carrying a descendant of Madame Zeroni up.
You must carry Madame Zeroni up the mountain and sing while I drink, so I can get strong too.
And is able to earn wealth and prosperity for his family. A similar success story plays out in Forrest Gump, when Forrest takes Bubba's shrimping knowledge and turns it into a multi-million-dollar food corporation.
Are you telling me you're the owner of the Bubba Gump Shrimp Corporation?
Yes, sir. We got more money than Davy Crockett.
Perhaps one of the most glaring examples of feel-good faux progressivism is the Green Mile's John Coffey, whose powers to fix or even heal white characters' problems are literally supernatural. In one scene, he heals Melinda Moore's brain tumor in a process that is physically draining for him.
He's joking. Whatever he sucked out of her, he's choking on it.
And while the story is about white people learning to see black people as human, the black character is given that humanity through proving his usefulness and kindness to white people, even while he's facing bigger problems than any of them, as a man about to be executed for a crime he didn't commit.
Just hell no. That coffee's innocent, I mean.
The magical minority trope also promotes the problematic idea that people of color's forms of knowledge are inherently mystical or intuitive.
Just rub this on his head every night, Mrs. Collingwood, and before you know it, his hair's gonna be as long and as thick as Mary Lou's mane.
Rarely are a magical minority's insights presented as the result of serious applied study or hard-fought lessons from their fleshed-out life experiences. Instead, the character is inexplicably magically wise.
You know, it happens sometimes that the spirit gets yanked out so quick that the essence still feels like it has work to do on here.
Whether it's rooted in magic or logic, a magical minority's knowledge is perfectly ready at the precise moments when white protagonists need it. Delivered in saccharine motivational metaphors,
There's a perfect shot out there trying to find each and every one of us.
or mysterious hints about what direction to go in.
I cannot tell you how long this road shall be, but fear not the obstacles in your path, for fate has vouchsafed your reward.
In the Dark Knight series, Lucius Fox's magic involves knowing Bruce Wayne's motivations better than the Caped Crusader knows them himself, and creating all the necessary technology for Bruce to carry out his missions, which is essentially what Batman's superpower is.
Hardened Kevlar plates over titanium-dipped tri-weave fibers for flexibility. It'll be lighter, faster, more agile.
While the most common version of the Magical Negro is gentle like Lucius, when it comes to magical Asians, mentorship more often takes the form of tough love or wry humor.
Show me wax on, wax off.
Outside of stories about the magical Asian fighting mentor, there are also examples of the mystic magical Asian, like Tran from New Girl.
I can't keep thinking of you as my magical best friend with no name. Joe, Tommy, Lewis, Tran.
Nick believes Tran possesses all-knowing wisdom, and the character appears in the narrative whenever Nick needs guidance, while always remaining a silent prop.
Do you understand a word I'm saying? You just nodded everything.
The magical minority trope in many ways is the inverse of the white savior trope. The person of color assumes the role of a selfless savior to a white protagonist.
No matter how filthy something gets, you can always clean it right up.
Yet in both the white savior and magical minority story, the white person remains the focus, while the person of color is sidelined into a supporting role.
Girl, stick with me. I'll hook you up.
After only 3 days, I began to think of her as St. Louise from St. Louis.
And then I will teach you everything I know.
While the trope may seem blatantly outdated and harmful, perhaps what's most shocking is how it continues to persist in a multitude of ways.
Doc, thanks for helping me with the letters. You're really good at writing them.
My pleasure, Tony.
In 2021's The Nevers, Dr. Horatio's only role in the first season is to heal the series protagonist, Amalia, whenever she requires it.
I knew Horatio would have time to sew me back up.
You rest up now.
In the Best Picture winner of the 2019 Oscars, Green Book, Don Shirley is a black man with an extraordinary talent.
He plays like Liberace, but better. He's like a genius, I think.
Whose primary role in the story is to help a regular white guy, Tony Lip, grow as a person.
You never win with violence, Tony. You only win when you maintain your dignity. Dignity always prevails.
Don helps Tony graduate from childlike writing in order to send more meaningful letters to his wife. And in the end, Don drives Tony home through a bad snowstorm to make it back for Christmas dinner.
Thank you for helping him with the letters.
Like other magical minorities whose personal lives are mostly off-screen, he doesn't have anywhere to go for Christmas, and the story's happy ending is that he's warmly welcomed by Tony's white extended family and friends.
Oh, come on, make some room, get this man a plate.
In plenty of recent media, the exceedingly common black geek or black expert character is, like the classic magical minority, a seemingly positive form of representation. Still, even if these characters' magic is based on technological or scientific rather than mystical knowledge, often they still function in the story to help a white protagonist.
Dock your slate. Data syncs automatically, got it?
Yeah. While having little backstory, depth, or fleshed out motivation, making them a modern update to the magical minority. These contemporary examples of the magical minority are frequently updated from their predecessors in some surface ways. They may be more willing to confront their white protagonists.
You people love the fried chicken.
You have a very narrow assessment of me, Tony.
Horatio does voice his frustrations with his and Amalia's dynamic.
It's not fun coming here to patch you up over and over.
However, he's ultimately ignored.
It could be fun.
Amalia, we've been through this.
It was fun. It was more than fun.
Modern magical minorities, despite their attempts to assert themselves, are ultimately submissive to their white protagonists' emotions and needs. Green Book inverts the typical capitalist dynamic of the trope, as Dawn is Tony's boss. However, this change is somewhat illusory, because Tony is protecting Dawn in the South. So Tony still holds the actual social power in scenes where he gets to valiantly play the white savior.
Tonight I saved your ass, so show a little appreciation maybe.
And it is clear throughout the movie that Don has internalized this attitude, putting aside his own convictions to appease Tony and create less hassle for him.
It's all right. I'll play if you want me to.
La La Land offers the example of Keith, a black character who isn't afraid to challenge Sebastian, the white protagonist, about his choices or approach.
You're a pain in the ass, man.
Again, though, Keith is still a tool used to show Sebastian's journey as a musician. He's even painted as a sellout in the historically black art of jazz because he is willing to adapt to a more pop-esque sound, while Sebastian is portrayed as the purist who refuses to stray from traditional jazz.
You're so obsessed with Kenny Clark and Thelonious Monk. These guys were revolutionaries. How are you going to be a revolutionary if you're such a traditionalist?
Similarly, Nick from Feel Good is at least offered some backstory, and his reference to his own oppression while giving May a pep talk may render his portrayal slightly more nuanced.
I know more than all of you pricks how unjust this world is. But if I let myself dwell on how much the odds are stacked against me, I'd run a bath, get a toaster.
But he's still a black character whose main purpose is offering advice and wisdom to the white protagonist.
I don't know why I bomb so hard.
Oh, I do. It's obvious.
What?
What's the common denominator every time you bomb? It's because you're having some problem or some argument with your girlfriend.
Despite her constant disregard for his feelings and livelihood.
Has anyone seen my rucksack? May.
Despite all these examples showing how far we haven't come, some shows and movies have been making a notable effort to critique, complicate, or move past the magical minority stereotype. The Leftovers Season 2 brings self-awareness to the ways that the character Virgil fits this profile.
What would you have done if I told you that the solution to all your problems was a magical black man sitting out on the edge of town?
He's a mystic who literally sacrifices his life to help the white protagonist take a spiritual journey into death itself. But unlike in the typical magical minority story, all this is not presented in a comforting, feel-good way. We also hear references to Virgil's complex past, including very troubling transgressions he was guilty of.
What'd you do? I heard him. I heard him a long time ago.
And we get to see how his family reacts to his death. Meanwhile, the season's cast is also filled with other well-rounded and nuanced POC characters. More recently, White Lotus mocks the way that white people bring magical minority expectations to interactions with people of color in service jobs. After luxury hotel spa employee Belinda gives rich white woman Tanya a spiritual-feeling spa treatment, Tanya becomes obsessed with Belinda as a kind of savior who can heal her emotional pain.
I mean, I was in agony yesterday and I woke up this morning and I had no pain at all.
Great. Oh, good. I'll make an appointment. And this satire underlines how wealthy white people, no doubt influenced by watching some of these magical minority movies, do seek out this exchange of an enriching, even life-changing experience in return for their money.
There's a purpose in helping, even rich people, you know? Helping them to find healing.
I know a lot of rich, white, up people. They could really use you.
Meanwhile, we see how Belinda feels pressure to perform the magical healer role Tanya wants from her in order to maintain what is a potentially life-changing professional relationship.
And she said if I wanted to start my own wellness center, she'd fund the whole thing.
Mom, you have to do that. That lady says jump, you say how high.
Chidi from The Good Place appears to start off as a textbook example of the trope, first presented as a professor with an incredible knowledge of ethics who's forced to spend his heavenly afterlife teaching an obnoxious white woman how to be a good person.
Please help me, man. I swear I am worth it.
Tell me one fact that you know about me.
However, as the series progresses, he diverges from the trope, as we find out how obtaining this expert moral knowledge actually cost him his own morality.
You hurt everyone in your life with your rigidity and your indecisiveness.
And he eventually must learn from his new friends too, establishing a give and take between individuals.
We improved each other.
and the four of us became a team.
With more women and POC creators at the helm of major studio releases, we're slowly seeing new characters break away from the magical minority trope and become increasingly self-aware of its implications.
I can't do this. Yes, you can. I mean, I'm not doing this.
The evolution of the magical minority reflects how far society still has to go when it comes to imagining the full humanity of people of color. These stories subtly encourage white people to expect people of color to be magical presences and to feel that the only acceptable kind of person of color is one that flatters their ego or substantially improves their life.
You lost your swing. You got to go find it.
Moreover, these portrayals create an expectation that people of color should be eager to serve, while showcasing superhuman resilience, able to just rise above any problem with good humor.
There's magic everywhere, if you're willing to see it.
And without society needing to address systemic problems.
If Don Shirley and Tony Vallelonga can find common ground, we all can. All we have to do is talk and to not judge people by their differences.
Overcoming the magical minority stereotype means recognizing the full spectrum of a character of color's emotional needs and personal experiences, and allowing them to put themselves first in their own stories.
You're always there when I need you, Tran. Thank you. I'm glad you got no life.
Thanks again to NordVPN for sponsoring today's video. If you're like me, you spend most of your day online, so having a great internet experience is essential. I don't want to sit through buffering when I'm trying to stream a show or worry that my data is vulnerable to prying eyes. And thanks to NordVPN, I don't have to. With NordVPN, I get uninterrupted streaming and an ultra-fast connection. I can even stream amazing content that's not usually available where I live. NordVPN keeps all of my internet data safe behind a wall of next-generation encryption. They also have a strict no-logs policy. They don't track, collect, or share any of my information. And NordVPN offers 24/7 support, so I never have to troubleshoot on my own. Click the link in the description below, nordvpn.com/thetake, to get a huge discount on a 2-year plan and 4 extra months of NordVPN for free. It's risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee.